Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, you are not going to believe it, but a bunch of stuff that you have always known about college football is all changing. Is it for the better? Like, yeah, probably in some ways, yes, but everything you knew and loved about college football is all changing again.
Next year. But yes, the changes that we're talking about today, the Division One football, the FBS Oversight Committee has announced a proposal to change a portion of the football calendar. Essentially, what they're going to do is one of the changes is what they're calling out of season activities, which would be effective January 1st and in 2027 and on. They're going to change how you do spring football by allowing two periods of off-season practice time, a total of 21 on-field practices. Those two times cannot be more than 7 weeks combined, and no one particular one of those, say, camps can be more than 5 weeks. And to me, like, if you want to give us two spring camps or a spring camp and an OTA type of thing, and let us see some stuff and let us talk to people and keep the fans engaged, I like this one.
Yeah, it lets you spread things out a little bit more throughout the course of right now. It's kind of the way Ohio State has traditionally done it. They come in for 2 days at the very beginning of March, and then they go on spring break for a week and a half, and then they come back, and then they do essentially about a month straight. It's usually about 5 weeks, ending in the spring game, and then the spring game ends on April 15th, give or take, and then they don't have anything official again until the first week of August when fall camp starts. This would sort of let you spread things out, and we'll get into, there's a little bit, you're shaving a little bit off of fall camp, and you're adding a little bit more into these sort of spring and summer activities. Right now summer is a very, very unofficial time. Coaches can't be out there at a time when there's a football out there, and there's all sorts of different rules that you can do certain stuff but not do other stuff. This would allow them to sort of spread out some of that instruction over the course of May or June and be able to do, you've got some springtime, uh, camp stuff, usual spring football kind of thing. Then maybe you take the month of May off, something like that. And then boom, you've got June, you've got another, say, 10 practices, something like that in early to mid June. And that lets you sort of spread out the activity. But there's also a bunch of, mandated time off. So you can't just sort of do, well, we're going to do one practice every 3 days for 6 months. That doesn't exactly work. But yeah, I'm with you. I like this general idea.
Yeah, one of the portions of this new proposal says, additionally, schools must designate a minimum of 9 discretionary or voluntary weeks for student athletes when required athletically related activities are not permitted. And basically means you can't schedule those practices in this week or that week, and you've got to designate which weeks there will be no mandatory practices. It's all just voluntary. Come on by, see how things are going, that sort of thing. I'm as I'm looking through this, we know Ryan Day has talked about OTAs and how he wouldn't mind seeing something like that in June coming from the NFL model. And as everything else continues to move towards the NFL model, this feels like to me we're going to get a sort of a spring. We'll still get a spring camp. It's going to be maybe 4 weeks. Can't be more than 5 weeks. And we know in the past it's extended from, like you said, basically early March through almost 7 or 8 weeks. The way it's gone, so I think we'll see maybe the 12 to 15 practices in the spring, and then you'll get 6 to 9 practices in June of at some point of OTAs. And I also think that will maybe coincide with some of the official visits. Hey, come watch practice, that sort of thing. Not that they want to have all of that conflicting again, where it's like we would like to just focus on recruiting, but they would also like to have their June OTAs. So I'll be interested to see how that works out. And so they get 21 practices during those two uh, outings, those two camps. They're also now going to go from 25 practices in fall camp, which they call preseason, to 21. So you're going to lose 4 practices there. Overall, you're gaining a couple of practices throughout spring and summer and fall camp. But preseason practice period would consist of 27 calendar days to conduct 21 practices. So it's going to be a little bit more congested, but overall, this you lose a couple of practices, and you also lose some of the early practices because you still have to do the acclimatization stuff of was it like 3 practices before you can throw the pads on. But by this point, they've been practicing in the spring, they've been practicing in June, and so it feels like they can go ahead and sacrifice a couple of these preseason practices as they get ready for the season.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see some of the nitty gritty specifics on this when this actually comes out. And this is one of these things where you would assume someone has thought about this and talked about this, and it's just not in the initial release. But you never know. Some of the folks in charge of college football every once in a while will be like, "Well, certainly you've thought of this," and it's like, yeah, sure we have, absolutely." We certainly, absolutely. My homework is in my mom's car. I forgot it. Anyway,
She lives
yeah,
in Alaska.
yeah. You wouldn't know her. She's from Canada. Uh, it's a really interesting trade off because you can tell, they're removing some practices during the preseason camp, which I'm sure coaches are probably not thrilled about. But you can see them sort of dangling the carrot. But
Mhm.
you get 2 more practices total. So when you think about it, really, you're going to be more prepared for the season. I do like spreading it out a little bit. I mean, it feels like the NFL can do it kind of however they want to, where they've got they have to negotiate with the Players Association, obviously, but they have their calendar set up where you've got some camp, you've got some unofficial activities, then you get a break, then you get some more unofficial activities, then you get a break, then you get your preseason camp. This would sort of mirror that a little bit more. And I'm sure going from you have all these practices in the spring and then there's this long gap with nothing and then you don't get back on the field together as a whole team to do full team activities until the beginning of August. I'm sure coaches would be happy to have, okay, we've had all these meetings, we've talked to you about all of this stuff, new starting quarterback. We Let's see in June now. Let's see you out on the practice field implementing that stuff, and then you have all sorts of new tape to teach off of instead of having to have the tape from spring ball in April, and you're still trying to teach off of that in the middle of July. So, yeah, I can see why this would be something that would be appealing to coaches. Something else that I can see why it would be appealing to coaches is notification of transfer period effective January 1st, 2027. The notification of transfer period, aka the transfer portal window, would change from a 15 to a 10-day period beginning the first business day following January 1st. So the transfer portal window would get shorter, which I think every day that's open takes about 2 months off the life of every Division 1 football coach. So if they can shorten that, I'm sure that's appealing to coaches. I don't know if is that a good news or bad news for players. I don't know. The guys who come into the portal later, are they getting talked into the portal? And if they get talked into the portal based on earlier transfers, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, it's both, and it just depends on the situation. And it's unfortunate that some players will get talked into it and not want to leave, and other players should leave that get talked into staying. But the 10 days, the 10 business days, is it 10 days after on the first day of business of January?
Hmm.
Um, the semifinals in the 2027 season take place in January 13th and January 14th. So like if you make the final four, if you make the semifinals, you've you're going to be working on preparation as we've seen and trying to deal with some of the transfer portal. And so there's still some issues, and we know that they're going to try if they could to smash all of the playoffs together if they can get to a 16 or a 24 team and try to make the calendar make more sense. It's it's a tough ask because there just aren't that many aren't enough Saturdays as they continue to expand the season. But yeah, those I'm sure the coaches, on like you said, on one hand, yes, please shrink this down because every day is a nightmare. But also for the four coaches that are still playing, not that you shouldn't set a rule based on, well, these the four coaches that are having the best season, it wouldn't be right for them. And as we've said a long time, like nobody's going to cry for them, nor should they. One last thing on the June OTAs. I wonder if this will also help. I think it would also help the June enrollees. Not that there are that many of those anymore, but this is an opportunity for them to get a little acclimated. So I think there's some benefit there. One of the other things that comes out of this, they're talking about a discussion of off-campus recruiting concept, which we saw a little bit of this in the past year after the season, where you used to have 10 coaches that could go off campus and recruit, including 11 plus the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're talking up to 16 staff members, not including the head coach, 17, including the head coach, to go and recruit off campus. So remember back in the days when James Laurinaitis, as the GA, could recruit from his office, from the WAC,
Mm-hmm.
or be designated as one of the 10 when they had some coaching changes or other coaches weren't going out. Now you've got your 10 full-time assistants and then 6 other guys. Who else would you like to send out on the road? And I think that is something that was a rule that was put in place initially in terms of the 10 allowable. It's kind of like you can't have a media guide more than 242 pages, and it's just like trying to keep everything fair. And as we know, that's completely out the window now.
Yeah, and this is one that I think the Ohio States of the world are very happy about because it allows you to send some of your other, it's not just your 10 main assistant coaches. You can send, your young, energetic assistant position coaches out
Devin
there.
Jordan.
Yeah, Devin Jordan is exactly the person I was
Yeah.
going to talk about. Assistant wide receiver coach who is young, energetic, a former Buckeye, very good recruiter, very popular with players, and has been on staff for years, and is someone who has relationships with all of these legendary Ohio State wide receivers who have played for him over the years. So he's a great resource for them in terms of going on the road. But you can, it's interesting that it's 16 assistant coaches, so it's almost all the position groups get a second person, but not all of them. So yeah, you've got some interesting choices to make there. But for an Ohio State that is, they don't have an unlimited travel budget, but they are more than happy to send folks on the road and send as many folks as they can on the road to get to as many places as they can. Yeah, that's I think that's an easy win, and easy yes for them.
Yeah, I mean, it will essentially allow multiple position coaches. You can send both your DB coaches. You can send Laurinaitis and the assistant linebackers coach. You can send the wide receiver coaches. You can send your quarterbacks coach and Ryan Day, that sort of thing, or Art Smith. So there's a number of different ways that you can do that. So it's you're able to connect with a recruit from both coaches that are going to be dealing with them. So I think that's one interesting thing. The last one that I wanted to mention here, instant replay video feed. This is an experimental rule. They want to permit instant replay video output to be made available in real time to the coaches' booths during games. What I would like to also have them make available is the audio of that as well. And also, hey, some talk back. Go back and forth.
Mhm.
But it's funny to think about, like, if they wanted to watch replay now, they've got like the 45-second delay of direct TV waiting for the replays there. But this is an interesting one. It's like almost, I'm sure people would be like, well, why don't they have that now?
Well, I think that it's they don't want you to be why don't you have that now is probably just a technological
Mm-hmm.
thing where, yeah, and at the Big Ten level that's not a problem, but now Conference USA has to implement this potentially as well, and smaller schools, the Sun Belt has to implement this, and all those. So this is something that's going to cost some money for the conferences and the schools, but it does. I wonder what the rule is on a challenge. How quickly do you have to challenge something? because in Major League Baseball the batter has to
Mm.
tap his helmet within 2 seconds or something like that. I don't know how much time they're going to have up in the booth to challenge it. And does this actually solve problems? Does this lead to better challenges, or does this just end up with coaches yelling and screaming, and the very funny situation where you get told to challenge something, and then the coaches up in the booth are wrong, and then the head coach goes from screaming at the officials to screaming at his
Mm.
staff. I mean, you can see all sorts of potentially hilarious outcomes here, but yeah, this is one where you should try and keep the game should keep up with technology. If you at home are looking at the instant replay and going, well, here's why that was a bad call, you should, if you know that, you would assume that the coaching staff should know that. And I would assume it's only a matter of time until that makes its way down to the iPads on the sidelines, and then you have a whole separate level. But that's not part of this potential change, but it is, it feels like that's probably coming at some point too.
And so this being experimental, this is for this year.
Yes.
Conferences can opt in,
Hmm.
um, and then for non-conference games, the visiting team can opt out. So that means both teams would have to opt out, which is exactly what happened when the Big Ten was the first conference to implement instant replay. If the visiting team in a non-conference game didn't want it, they didn't use it. But yeah, you will have to equip everybody with their own video replay system in the booths, and then yeah, what do they get their own buzzers at that point? Can they buzz down to the officials? Doesn't say anything about that, but it's you're gonna have to call down to the coach, and then the coach, somebody on the sideline will have to throw their flag to get the replay. So those are some of the changes coming, and like I said, the replay is going to go for this year, provided everything gets approved. These are proposals and recommendations, and generally when these come out, they get passed. So just wanted to keep you guys up to date on some of the interesting changes coming. The idea of two camps next spring and is I'm looking forward to that. I think, sure, it's more work for us, but we're not here for us. We're here for you. And while we are here for you, if you're watching, go ahead and hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified. If you're on mobile, there's a button like towards the bottom of the screen where you can hype this video and allow others to move us up the leaderboard, and other people can see us, and it helps the algorithm. And so you can do that as well. 5-star rating and review on the audio side. If you're on the audio side and want to watch, you can find us at youtube.com/at Buckeye Insider. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.